Looking for real stories that lift you up and light a fire inside? Welcome to Inspire and Impact, the podcast where purpose meets perseverance. This is where transformation begins and your story continues.
Welcome to the Inspire Impact podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. The show features real conversations with thought leaders, healers, entrepreneurs, and creatives who share journeys of growth, purpose, and making a meaningful impact. Today, I have the honor of interviewing Jeff Klubeck. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Great. Can you maybe introduce yourself to the audience and share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. First of all, I'm easy to get a hold of. I'm easy to learn more about. Jeff Klubeck. I'm easy to find. I'm a soft skills guy. I believe soft skills make strong leaders, teams, and organizations. I'm the author and founder of the Integrity Game, which is a 10-point framework that I use to deliver soft skills for strong leaders. So coaching, consulting, training, speaker for hire, or I like getting speakers ready for big stages and events. I'm married. I got 3 kids. I got a master's in communication. I teach some classes at San Diego State University. And that's where I got my 2 degrees. So I feel really good to be reconnected, to give back to those students. Teaching public speaking at my alma mater is wonderful. And that's a little bit about me. Got 2 dogs.
Great. Can you maybe share with us what inspired you to go into communications and also want to help become a teacher instructor to help other people with their communications?
Well, yeah, it's kind of like, communication found me. I don't know if I found it, right? We all have gifts, right? And some of us are investing in our gifts and celebrating our gifts and optimizing our gifts. And other people are intimidated by our gifts and what it takes to optimize them and then the responsibility that comes with it. But, yeah, I've from door-to-door sales as a youngster, I used to go door-to-door, selling subscriptions to the newspaper, and I had a paper route, and I would stand on the corner and sell lemonade. Partly because I wanted money, and I figured, hey, one of the ways to earn money is to, develop communication skills, talk to people. But when I went into college, I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I grew up at a time, I'm 53 years old now. So I grew up when cable television hit the scene, right? So MTV and ESPN and whoa, we couldn't believe it. And I really fell in love with the whole sports broadcasting thing. And when I got into college, I thought I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. But as my general education kicked in, I realized there was more to communication than just that. And I got into sociology and critical thinking and philosophy and some other things. And it had evolved to the point where when I decided I wanted to get my master's, I wanted it to be in communication. But the other thing too, Daniel, is that part of that was I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life yet. And I went from a bachelor's in telecommunications management, and it would have been easy. It was actually a path of least resistance to stay and get a master's at San Diego State because I was familiar with a third of the faculty already. It was a comfort zone for me in a big way. So, it's multi-determined how I got into communication. But then how did I know I wanted to be a teacher? Well, one of the professors that I looked up to, I finally earned the right to get into his class. And by the time I finally got into his class, it was a graduate student teaching it. And I was so disappointed, but I'm wait a second, graduate students can teach college level courses? Wait a second. And that became the new thing that I wanted to do. I'm all right, I'm going to get into grad school and I'm going to teach one of Dr. Reel's courses. Dr. Reel, rest in peace. I'm talking about Dr. Michael Reel. He did the famous study on the Super Bowl, realizing that in a 4-hour television production of a Super Bowl, there's less than 10 minutes of actual game action. That was a study he did that went into a book called Super Media. So study media criticism and studying the impacts of media on people. And yeah, so Dr. Reel, it was a big inspiration for me in terms of wanting to help others. And then the last thing I'll say is that I got a lot of help along the way myself, right? So I'm part self-made man, but there's people along the way that have been able to recognize things in me and lend a hand where it was needed. And so I'm committed to doing what I can to help others.
Wonderful. So can you maybe explain a little bit more about how does your 10-point model and the integrity game help leaders align values with actions?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, if we pan way out, okay, the word integrity, what I've learned in my public speaking and the trainings and the facilitations and the events and the retreats, when I ask people, how many of you believe you have integrity? Everybody raises their hand, right? So everybody judges themselves to be of integrity or having integrity. Then I joke around and say, hang on, keep your hand up and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear not to shoot the messenger or the keynote speaker in 37 minutes, and they laugh. But then I get serious. It's like, well, hang on, I don't want to offend the audience. I want good ratings. I want to be invited back next year for another talk. So let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. And that's when I slow it down and I get audience interaction. And I pull from my audience, well, what is it? What is your definition of integrity? What is integrity to you? And these same people that just, 30 seconds ago raised their hand saying, I have integrity, they're all of a sudden now, they're like, it becomes mob mentality. Do what you say you're going to do. Yeah, the crowd will go. Like, or do the same thing when nobody's watching as you would when somebody's watching. Yeah, the crowd will go. And I get to play. Oh, was that your answer? They took your answer. Oh, that wound sounds fresh. Did that happen this morning where somebody wasn't their word with you or somebody did something out of alignment? So I just want to start at that's a thought level, which is, hey, can we take the judgmental vibration out of this thing? We judge ourselves by intent. I got plenty of integrity, but when I ask what it is, all of a sudden my finger's pointing at all these other people that don't. And I laugh because, wait, I got a really good audience. Somehow I got the keynote with 100% of the audience has integrity, but these same 100 people know that out of integrity is so common outside of this room. I should go buy a lotto ticket, right? So this is what I'm talking about, fast-paced, humor-laced public speaking style. But then the keynote progresses to where we really break it down. And those are the two answers I always get. Do what you say you're going to do, or do the right thing, or same thing when nobody's watching as you would when somebody's watching. So in the keynote, I talk about what I like about those two answers. Cool, it's good. But then I make the point it's not good enough. I think there are more things that we need to integrate, more things that we need to bring together. Doing what you say you're going to do isn't enough. Why are you saying you're going to do that? What is, you know what I mean? Be your word, cool. But what is your word integrated with? Right? And then do the right thing regardless of who's watching. I don't know what country you live in, Daniel, but we live in the United States where we can't agree on what's right or wrong, what's true or not true. We, misinformation, disinformation, fake news, broke news, like red and blue, two wings of the same bird. Like the same event will occur and somebody thinks it's the greatest thing in the world and somebody thinks it's evil. So what's right or wrong? What's good or bad? What's the right thing? Everybody's sitting in judgment of everybody else, right? So what the integrity game is trying to do is say, hey, I think there's 10 things that we need to bring together, not just word with behavior and not just behavior with values. But I think there's it's part of it. Those answers are good, but not enough in my opinion. And so I have a 10-point model that I call the integrity game. And it's very simply, first of all, it starts off that there's just points on a model. There are doors to knock on to get into land of personal professional growth. Right. So there's more content behind each door. Right. But if somebody's playing the integrity game, the 10 points on the model become question sets. So the integrity game is an invitation for an individual or a team or an entire culture to answer questions about itself, to retrofit itself. Right. Metaphorically, a building will crumble under pressure tests without structural integrity. Right. Right? Without structural integrity, a building will crumble when pressure tested. Well, what we're saying is so will individuals, so will leaders, so will teams, high-performance teams, cultures, organizations. So whether it's, a tornado or a pandemic, whether somebody got to work late or a CEO was murdered on Park Avenue, or there's pressure tests that are coming, but are the people, are the teams, is the culture resilient? And my answer is yes, if we have answers to these questions, right? So the points on the model become things like purpose or gifts or potential or goals or strategies, tactics, and resources. But the integrity game is inviting everybody to answer these questions. What's the purpose? What are the competitive advantages? What's the potential here? All right, what do we need to achieve by Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 in order to be on our way? All right, what's the best strategy matched to the behavioral styles that we discovered when we looked at differentiation? So we're playing a bigger game, right? If I said I was going to sleep on the couch for 22 out of every 24 hours, and then I went and I slept on the couch for 22 out of every 24 hours, I will have done what I said I was going to do. But we all know that I can't claim integrity on the couch 22 out of every 24 hours. There's no way that I can say that I'm in integrity just because I did what I said I was going to do, right? And sometimes we do have to lie or distort the truth or withhold the truth, even though we should never lie. Parents, play elf on the shelf and guilt their kids into good behavior. We lie, we lie to our family members, we lie to our friends, we lie all the time, even though we would raise our hand and say, oh yeah, we should never lie. I'm an honest person. So I'm trying to take the judgment out of it, trying to take the ego defense out of it. I'm trying to make it easier and more fun to look within. Every job is an inside job, but most people are avoiding answering the really tough questions about their own life and taking responsibility for their own life, their own career. They'd rather go to the water cooler and point fingers at everybody else who's messing up. Hey, election or no election, right? I still have a purpose in this life, right? I'm still here to do something. So I'm going to let all these other things keep me from doing what I'm here to do, or am I going to stay focused and resilient on what I'm here to do in the face of pressure tests, right? So I wrote the book, The Integrity Game, during the pandemic. Why waste a good... Now, not that I didn't watch any Netflix. Okay, I did. But why wait? I still, pandemic or no pandemic, I'm still on this planet for a reason. So, I wrote The Integrity Game during the pandemic, and I've been building it as a brand, ever since, the book came out in 2022. So I've given the keynote in different cities and countries around the world. I've got some license holders that want to be certified in being able to deliver the Integrity Game methodology, or, licensed to be able to redistribute the framework as a, training and development, learning and development, right? That's what it is. It's personal, professional growth, training and development. But I think it's what's unique about it is the 10 points and how I put it together and how it gets delivered. So some of it is reinventing the wheel, but that's what we do. Is there's universal truths, and then the leaders put them into their own words, their own frameworks, their own phraseology, etc. So a lot of the Integrity Game is 100% familiar to everybody that hears it, but I've constructed it in a way that makes integrity actionable. It's like now I can actually increase my integrity by answering some questions and making sure my answers align, sharing my answers with an objective, supportive, trusted coach, right? That can hold me accountable to my answers, right? So that's a long-winded answer, but that's what the Integrity Game is in short order.
No, that honestly sounds really amazing. I'll get to it in just a moment. So I just want to be clear. Do you offer, aside from the book, do you have either a certification or like a training program that goes beyond just the book now?
Oh, yeah. It's all new. It's all young right now as we record this, right? It could take me 10 years to fully develop it the way that I visualize it, right? But 100%, I've got intellectual property protection on the 10-point model in its class of services, et cetera. So which means I don't just get to sell seats or programs. I can sell licenses and certifications because I have the IP for the Integrity Game. So absolutely. And now my background as a professor means I'm not just in personal professional growth, but I see it through pedagogical lenses, through instructors' lenses. What's a learner? What's the learning environment? What's the content being learned? What's the environment where the content is being learned? How do we assess? How do we exercise? How do we activate the content? How do we assess competency? When do we know if somebody's trained or not? Right? So my years in the classroom have me seeing personal professional growth that way. So I didn't just learn how to be a coach myself. I criticized everything that was going on about the training to myself and said, hey, when I get through this training, I'm going to build a training the way I want to train, the way I, so now my experience in the classroom integrates with my experience in personal professional growth to create a competitive advantage, right? So one of the projects that I have right now is developing curriculum for somebody else's university at the center of their ecosystem. They want to build a mergers and acquisitions ecosystem, and they've tapped me to assemble all the content, build the curriculum for them, and set them up for instructor-led experiences. So yes, the answer to your question is you can get the book, you can hire me or an Integrity Game certified speaker to do the Integrity Game keynote or a facilitation. One of our favorite things to do is come in and give the keynote for 45 minutes, but then add a 45-minute or an hour workshop on top of it, where we actually roll up our sleeves and get into action and implement, and so people and audiences can see how actionable it is to increase our own integrity, which changes the vibration of the whole organization or the team, etc. When everybody is sharing the language, when everybody is looking within, when everybody feels safe to improve themselves and be honest about what's going on for themselves, it's got the potential to be super powerful, but we're still in the infancy. But the answer to your question is yes. If there's aspiring and emerging coaches out there and they're looking for a framework and a methodology without having to reinvent the wheel, and you like my style a little bit, we'd love to hear from you for sure.
I mean, I find that really interesting because I personally am really into self-development, and I've taken a lot of courses, programs. One of them has been the Landmark Forum or Landmark Education. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Yeah. They talk a lot about integrity, but they are more fixed on, as you were saying before, about people's behavior, notice people's behavior. And they notice that one of the reasons why people are not happy because they're out of integrity. But they focus more on just that one aspect of the behavior. And that was revolutionary you said very few people are talking about integrity. And I think it's very important because we live in a society. I mean, I live in Florida, and like so many people lie. You said whether it's politics, business, you said family, relationships, friends, wherever you go. I mean, it just seems to be a big part of our culture, especially like I mean, I'm a professional digital marketer. I'm saying I don't lie, but it's pretty prevalent. People in the advertising and marketing industry, to tell people what they want to hear to get people to buy their products and services. But there are a lot of times they're out of integrity. And I find this really remarkable. And I love the Landmark program. I mean, it helped me a lot because it changed the way I thought. It made me think about things I wasn't thinking before because as you said, like there were areas in my life where I personally was out of integrity, and it kind of helped me shift into focus. And then it's like you said, by asking certain questions, you start to pivot, and your mind starts to shift and thinking about things in a different way. Where you're just saying, well, why am I not doing that, or why am I doing this? But I really like the fact that they're taking like kind of like what they're doing, but like the whole new level. I mean, that's my kind of understanding.
Well, yeah. First of all, let's give credit where credit is due. There's a lot. Landmark's been around for a while, and they've assembled a lot of the universal truths. But of course, they've been around so long that now Landmark is an institution, and it has to feed itself too. So there's aspects of that culture that could be called into question when it comes to integrity as well, right? So we're all human beings here, right? And let's give credit where credit is due. Landmark's at a level that I'm not at yet, right? But I hope I'm making the same thing that Landmark is offering available in different packaging, different flavor, different style, different speed, different delivery mechanism. Does that make sense? Instead of the forum in that environment, that they have a model, and my model's different, but the goal is the same. We want, as best we can, 100% self-responsibility. We want, as best we can, to be 100% honest with ourselves about who we are and what's going on. We have to take responsibility for ourselves. Now, I'm not writing the integrity game because I know more than anybody else on integrity. Guess what? I wrote the integrity game because I want more integrity in my life. I recognize where I fail or struggle, or I'm conflicted, or where I'm empty, or where I'm terrified, or where I'm time wasting, or where I'm hyper aware of those things. And it's like, all right, if I'm going to make a commitment to improving, and I'm just going to invite people to play with me.
And you kind of touching upon my next question to you was like, what inspired you to write about like integrity? Why is integrity, a big important issue for you? I mean, because you said like you personally had some integrity issues that I guess were bothering you, or
yeah. I have a thing called Klubeck. My last name is Klubeck. So when I come up with a motivational quote or a nugget, or I call them Klubeck. It's either my wife's homemade cookies or my motivational quotes. So here's one. Here's a Klubeck for you. Are you ready? Everything is multi-determined. Right? Everything. So including what got me into integrity, right? So one of the pieces is the integrity game is born in the land of accountability. So going through my accountability coaches training, when I was learning how to deliver accountability coaching, some of the content was Landmark Forum and goal setting. Like that person was pulling from all these different places. So that's when I first got exposed to Landmark, was in accountability coaching, right? And you got to look within, and what does real accountability, deep accountability look like? But over the years, I realized that accountability is always going to feel like an attack when people aren't ready to be responsible for their behavior. Okay, so let's pin that on the board. Then I also know from teaching critical thinking in the classroom for now, I'm in my 23rd year with a 6-year break. So almost 30 years I've been teaching, but I retired for 6 years when my coaching and consulting and training and speaking was taking me around the world. I couldn't commit to brick and mortar, but now I'm out of retirement at my alma mater post-COVID. And I'm teaching critical thinking, right? And so what I'm getting at is one of the barriers that prevents people from thinking critically is the same thing that prevents people from listening, is the same thing in my opinion that prevents people from loving, is called ego defense. And by the way, ego defense was last night's Klubeck. So I'm going all over the place here, Daniel, but stay with me. This book, Klubeck, that I'm showing right now, was co-authored with my daughter. So it's 52 of my motivational quotes and her journal style responses to them. And we've got them in 4 flavors: loving flavored, ego flavored, discipline flavored, and integrity flavored. So there's a bridge to what I do professionally. But my daughter's going off to college later this year, so this is an incredible project for us. And literally every Sunday night, we go online and we live stream, and I read one of my motivational quotes, and then she reads her journal style response. So literally last night, week number 15, ready? Ego defense is an emotional fight or flight response. That's the quote. Ego defense is one of the things that prevents us from thinking critically, right? So if I heard a buzz by my ear, I wouldn't think about it. I would just swat and duck immediately. I wouldn't be like, I hear a buzz that could sting me. If it's a bee, I don't want to get stung. How should I do this? Should I Google? Should I call my wife? How do I avoid getting stung in this situation? No, there's no logic. It's just instinctually swat and duck, right? Well, I know that ego defense is the same thing when information comes along. It's emotional fight or flight. So our ego is not arrogant or, it's not, or, you know what I mean? Ego is just our sense of self. It's our sense of who we are. Well, left to our own devices, we're going to raise our hand when somebody says, how many of you believe you have integrity? That's how we sense ourselves. Whether it's true or not is a different story, right? My point is, bring it all together. If I led my keynote, Daniel, and said, how many of you have an external accountability source that you either trust or even pay for in order to make sure that you're as honest as you could possibly be at all times about who you are and what you're doing? Nobody would raise their hand. But if I say, how many of you believe you have integrity? Everybody will raise their hand. So in trial and error, in evolution, so like it's multi-determined. I teach public speaking. You don't want to talk about fear. But, it's general education, public speaking. They have to take it. They don't want to take it. They're engineers and scientists and chemists and biologists and accountants and business. They don't want to take public speaking, but they have to take public speaking. And I used to take it personally, that they weren't engaged, that they weren't excited. I was so excited to teach. I felt it was like pulling teeth to get my students into it. So I developed a stand-up comedy style. You get people engaged, right? To get people to care about what they're doing. I know you don't want to be here, but why do you think you have to be here if you have to be here? Yeah, because it's important, okay? And let me tell you all the reasons why it's important. Let me show you what your career can be like if you can nail this, right? And so by the end, I've got students thanking me all these years later. Why do I say that? The experience of teaching people public speaking, right? That helps me so much in getting people engaged in their own professional accountability. You follow?
Yeah.
So I've got to stop. I can break through. I can get people engaged. Then we can get them motivated. Then we can hold them accountable. You follow? And that's the theory. Those are the 3 pillars that everything stands on. Can we get people engaged, excited about who they are and what they want? Then we can give them enough motivation to change the behavior that needs to change. And then can we hold them accountable now to their answers to the game that they're playing and make all of it non-threatening and hot knife through warm butter and cut through the resistance of the smoke and the mirrors and the disillusionment or the delusional thinking, on and on and on. And it's funny to think because nobody's to blame and nobody's at fault, but we're all human beings and we're all lying to ourselves. And I just want to be a light bearer, I'm right. And so this is my work and I'm just inviting the world to play with me.
Wonderful. Well, can I ask you, how can leaders foster a culture of accountability without instilling fear? Because Cal mentioned sometimes when people bring up accountability, they get a little bit scared because they get reactionary.
Yeah, it's a tough, it's like on the one hand, the answer is they can't. Right? Let's just be quick about it. Instead of going off on some flowery, tangent, I'll just say they can't. You can't install a culture of accountability without provoking some fear. You just cannot do it because it's like me trying not to flinch or duck when I hear a buzz by my ear. Can't do it. My point is, do not rephrase the question. How can leaders install a culture of accountability without restate the question? Let me hear it again.
Fear into people.
Yeah. Guess what? Stop being afraid of installing fear. Let's start there. What if you weren't afraid of installing fear? Now, listen, that's not because you're trying to install fear. You're not installing fear. You're installing accountability. So what somebody that doesn't want to be responsible for themselves is, you're scaring me. I'm afraid now. I don't feel psychologically safe. Oh, Well, you're not a right fit for the organization, because anybody that's here for the right reasons is going to support our desire to create a culture of accountability. This is not judgment. It's not punishment. It's a culture of people being responsible for their careers and their behaviors and their decisions and their communication and their skill development and their growth. Right? We want, right? And so if I was afraid of installing fear, and that's the reason that I never install a culture of accountability. You know what I really want to be afraid of is no accountability in my organization. As a matter of fact, if I can be funny for a moment with you, are you ready, Daniel?
Let's go for it.
The integrity game is my second coaching business that I built. The first is Get a Clue. I built that, and now I'm building this brand into it, right? It's the same service, it's just a different business, right? Well, the third one, you want to know what the third coaching practice I'm going to build is?
What?
This is great. This is the first time I'm saying this publicly. Are you ready? Fireyourfamily.com. Accountability coach. Yeah, accountability coaching for family-owned businesses, family-owned, owner-managed, or God forbid, businesses that aren't family-owned but want to run their business like a family. Oh, man. You mean like you want to head into the dysfunction and inability to hold people accountable and underqualified people in certain positions and overpaid people in other positions and marriages that are ruined and dinner. I got a list of all of the problems at family-owned businesses, and it's because of an inability to hold each other accountable because they're stuck with each other. So they don't say what needs to be said. They don't do what needs to be done, right? There's favoritism, there's nepotism, there's lack of performance, there's misalignment, there's shattered dreams of kids that are not holding their parents accountable to letting the business run without them, or not holding themselves accountable to telling their parents what their real dream is instead of it, carrying the weight for their mom. Like, Mom, Dad, you chose this business. That doesn't mean that hey, I'm grateful, Mom and Dad, for everything that you've done, but does that mean I'm stuck in your business for the rest of my life? Huh? Right? And then how does that affect the way the business needs to run? Business has needs. There's major accountabilities that all businesses need to meet. And the layers of family kind of undermined the accountability that the business needs. You tracking? So you want to be afraid of something? Be afraid of running your business like a family, or running your family like a business. And I'd be afraid of that, but I'm not afraid of people being afraid that there's a culture of accountability, because if you're afraid of accountability, that means you don't want to be held accountable. That means you're not a right fit for this position. And I don't care if we're blood related. If you want to go be non-accountable, go do that in somebody else's business, but not the family business. You know what I'm saying? As an example, and I really want to be afraid of something.
Well, that was a really good answer. I mean, to the question, I wasn't expecting you to say that. I thought you were going to give me something else about like how to overcome. So you want to say it to it. It's like, no, just go to it.
Yeah, it's ironic, right? How do you install a culture of accountability without installing fear? Well, stop being afraid. Like, get rid of your own fear first. Be a leader. Right? Like, hey, if I want to do this without fear, I have to be fearless in doing it. It's always an inside job. Right? Are we really want to avoid fear? Is that the real purpose, to have a culture of accountability, is to avoid fear? That's not the number one decision maker in installing a culture of accountability. And if it was, let's be clear about what we really need to be afraid of, which is a lack of performance, an inability to manage change, no succession planning, no exit strategy, no efficiency, no talent management, right? No competition within the organization for the high leverage jobs, because it goes to the family members. What if the family business grows to where there's non-family members working in the business? Now you got nepotism and otherism and separation and Hatfields and McCoys, and now you're wasting a lot of time at the water cooler because of all of the drama. So let's be clear about what we should really be afraid of. Like, don't tell me you're afraid of installing a culture of accountability. Right? Let's talk about what you really need to be afraid of. What you really are afraid of, which is having to be held accountable yourself. That's what you're really afraid of.
Now, talking about fear, I mean, like, since you're in public speaking, why do you think like so many people say that, like, the fear of public speaking is like the number one fear? Why is that?
Okay, here's why. and I address this with my students all the time. Okay, people are not afraid of public speaking. What they're afraid of is being criticized for their speaking, because what they're really afraid of is that they don't know how to prepare for public speaking. They don't know what to say, what not to say, how to prepare. They don't have a process, a system. They are uncertain. Now, look, if I told you, Daniel, hey, guess what? We need you to speak in about a month. And don't worry, we have 8 steps that you follow, and you will be super ready for this engagement. But I'm afraid. See, so all that I'm afraid does is try to get you to not even start step one. Like, oh, I know you're afraid, but step one is determine the purpose. Step one. So what's the purpose of public speaking? We're trying to entertain, inform, or persuade. Oh, well, we're trying to persuade. We want people to go to the back of the room and sign up for this, or we want them to vote, or we want them to buy, or we want them to take action, we want them to fill out a form, or we want them to register for the next event. Yeah, we're trying to persuade. Okay, cool. Guess what? At step one, you know your purpose. And now they're answering the question of purpose, and they're forgetting their fear, and they're getting really clear about why to speak and what's the purpose. All right, let's go to step 2 now. What's the topic? I don't know. There's a gazillion topics. Okay, well, why did we hire you? Why did we raise you? Why did we promote you? Oh, because I'm really good at blank. Aha. So what are the top 5 topics there where you have a subject matter expertise? What do you love? What can you speak about in your sleep? What do you know more about than anybody else in the audience? Oh, now it's easy. It would be blankety, blankety, blank, blank. Okay, we got our topic. Right? And now they're 25% done with the 8-step process, going through 2 steps. And now they're focusing on their genius, their purpose, their subject matter expertise, what they know better than anybody. So you're not afraid of public speaking. What you're ignorant to is how to prepare. What you're afraid of is not being supported. What you're afraid of is the uncertainty that comes with not having alignment, not playing the integrity game on the way to public speaking, right? On and on. So the other thing I'll tell you, which is really funny, is this, right? So here's how they establish that public speaking is the number one fear. Are you ready, Daniel?
Yeah.
This is what they do. They do survey research, social science research. I don't know if you've ever done a master's degree or a PhD and understand what it, to do, experimental method and blah, 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 hypotheses and operationalize variables and test the theory and recreate the experimental conditions and crunch the numbers and do the statistical analysis and blah, 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 blah. It's the most fun I never want to repeat, you can tell. And what they do, though, they create a survey about what the number one fear is: snakes and spiders and public speaking and jumping out of an airplane and heights and whatever, right? And they go to the shopping mall or the prison or the farmer's market, a captive audience where there's a bunch of people all in one spot so they can get their 1,000 surveys done in one day So you see how it starts to get diluted, right? Just then, right? But now you've seen these questions before. You fill out your name, your demographic, your income level, your educational status. And then you get to the questions like, do you agree? Do you strongly agree? Do you neither agree nor disagree, or strongly disagree? And you get there and they say, hey, we'll give you $1 off coupon to your favorite restaurant if you fill out this survey for us. You're like, yeah, I'll take the $1 off coupon. And then you get to in that context, right? You're at the farmer's market, and you get you're incentivized for the $1 off. Right? You got all these questions. You just want to get through them. Your buddy is there and they want the $1 off too. So they're waiting for you to get done. Oh no, we have an extra clipboard. Here you go. You can both go at the same time. Smart canvasser if they have 2 clipboards. You understand what I'm getting at? And then the question comes, Daniel. I would rather die than give a speech. Strongly agree. Right? You understand how easy it is to pick strongly agree in that situation? But if I came up to the same person with a gun and I said, would you rather die or give a speech? They'd be like, what's the topic? How much time do I have? Can I go twice? Let's go. So when faced with death or public speaking, I promise you, we will choose public speaking. And if I'm your coach, you'll choose it quicker and you'll do more in your career with it. I will get anybody past the fear of public speaking. Moreover, I'll help you bring out your brand and I'll help you enhance your persuasive impact on your audience. And if you're not ready for public speaking yourself, then bring me in. I'd love to be speaker for hire, learn your brand and wow your audience, right? So thanks for asking about that.
I mean, if you can give one piece of advice to people who do have that fear, or ignorance, whatever you want to call it, about public speaking, what advice would you give to people in the audience about that?
Yeah, it's not advice, it's an invitation. I invite everybody in the audience that believes they're afraid of public speaking or believes they're afraid of installing a culture of accountability or believes they're afraid of investing in the next hire to grow the business or anybody that believes they're afraid of anything, right? The invitation is to slow down and ask yourself what you're really afraid of. In other words, the status quo. or the consequences of missing out on the opportunity? Or what happens if your competition wants to speak in public and you don't, and they get the big contract and you don't? What happens when somebody dumber than us is getting raised and promoted ahead of us? We're smarter than them and we work harder, but they were willing to speak in public and I wasn't. Right? So don't focus on afraid of public speaking. Focus on what your career will look like if you never get over the fear of public speaking. I'm afraid of commitment too, but without getting over that fear and proposing to my wife, I would never have my 3 kids and all of our. I'm still terrified of commitment. We're several decades into this thing. But what I was really afraid of was loneliness and not being a dad and father, creating legacy that I wanted. That's what I was really afraid of. So I had to step up to this commitment thing that I thought I was afraid of. Because what I was really afraid of is not being a dad, not being a husband.
So can you maybe also explain a little bit, like with your 10-point plan with the integrity, when people answer those questions, how does somebody become a better leader by using that process?
Well, yeah, first of all, because the integrity game, it's like, what's the first thing is like, what's the subject of the integrity game? So the idea is any noun can be the subject of the integrity game. So when you look at the 10-point model, right, I could say, well, the subject of this integrity game is Jeff Klubeck. So then I say, well, what's my purpose? What are my gifts? What's my potential? And I'll go through and I'll answer all 10 question sets with myself as the subject. But I could take Jeff Klubeck as an individual out of that, and I could say, what's my business? What's the purpose of the integrity game? Why does the integrity game exist? And then go back and answer all same 10 questions for that noun, right? I could say my marriage. Let me put my marriage as the subject. And now what's the purpose of my marriage? What are the competitive advantages in my marriage? What potential does my marriage have? What are my goals for my marriage? All right. What strategies and tactics? So just answer the questions. And now I'm more resilient and focused and locked in on improving, the resilience and the sturdiness, the ability of my marriage to do what it's supposed to do. Right. So to your question, leadership. So a leader can either put themselves into it and ask questions for themselves, or they could put their job or their role, right? They could say, hey, as a leader, how do I improve a leader? How do I have more integrity in my leadership? And then they could be guided along to answer questions for that now. Right? My job. What's the purpose of my job? What are my competitive advantages in my job? Or what competitive advantages does this position have? What's the potential? What are the goals? Just go through and answer the questions. You got to focus on what's the subject of this integrity game, and then answer the question sets to that subject. So my answers to the integrity game for my marriage might be different than my answers as an individual. But if I'm really high level play, I have 10 sets of answers for who I am as an individual. Then I answer for my marriage and make sure all of the answers integrate and make sure all the answers go together rather than contradict each other, rather than dilute each other. So whether you're a leader, whether you're a high potential employee that's on their way to being a leader, whether you're a brand new manager, or whether you're a senior director trying to break through to VP, whether you're producing the most widgets, now you're about to be promoted to be the manager of the widget producers, which is like, don't do that, right? Because they're good at producing widgets, not managing people. Anyway, right? Whatever it is, right? You can use the integrity game to align and to retrofit, right? To redo your foundation and your structure. So at all times, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? What's going on? And now all of the pressure tests that come along, they'll bounce off like a 2-mile-an-hour wind rather than threaten the entire structure. Does that make sense? So I know I'm speaking in vagaries a little bit, but what I'm trying to get at is the integrity game is as easy to understand as it's difficult to play, because we ask people to look within and answer tough questions that most people avoid for themselves. I do this when I'm hiring interns or marketers. I say, well, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I don't know, just tell me something to do, and I hope I get really good at it, and then you pay me money. No. You don't get the job that way. You tell me what you want to put on your resume 3 months from now, because you know where you're headed with your career. You know what's going to look good on your resume. You know the skills and experiences that you want to put on your resume. So if you can tell me that, now it's my job to give you the resources and the support so that you can put that on your resume 3 months from now. But anybody that doesn't know what they want to do, how am I going to manage that person? So it comes down to holding people accountable to declaring what they want. And some people need more help and support with it than others, right? Most people will never decide what they want. They'll just be a pawn in somebody else's game, complaining about the things because that's subconsciously that's in place of them taking responsibility for themselves.
Now, you also have the Confident Candidate Program. Can you maybe explain to us what exactly is that program about?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not a huge program. It's just an e-course. So if you think about, let's back up to 20,000 feet elevation for a second. If you came into, like, if I'm a restaurant, you come into my restaurant, we put a menu down. What are all the things that somebody could buy from us, right? So coaching, consulting, training, and training can be hybrid, instructor-led or self-paced. We could put the material, right? So Confident Candidate, it's just a webinar that I did one day, and I created a workbook for it, right? So it's a 1-hour talk that has a worksheet. So a listener can listen in and fill in their blanks in the worksheet, take some notes, get some ahas. And it's something that we make available for super cheap on our website through our membership site. So I built e-courses along the way: Confident Candidate, strategic staffing, 8 steps to fearless public speaking, goal setting. We have the 90-day challenge where every fall we play the integrity game live, 12 weeks in a row for 90 days in the fall. So the digital assets, the online course versions of all of these things are in the Arena. It's the membership site at the Integrity Game. So anybody that's listening or watching right now, if they go to the Integrity Game and they look for Join the Arena is just the membership site. So there's 4 different levels that people can join. It's free, general admission. So anybody gets 2 complimentary coaching sessions with an Integrity Game certified coach if they join our membership site. But there's tons of free content as well, preview for the courses that are paid. And then we have a $97 level where people can subscribe for $97 and get access to all these cool courses, including Confident Candidate, strategic staffing, public speaking, goal setting, 90-day challenge, and some others. And those 2 levels are for like a consumer of the Integrity Game, right? Somebody that wants to play the Integrity Game themselves or tap into my content or our style of delivery and work on themselves. Then the higher levels, the $247 a month and the $500 a month, those are for aspiring and emerging coaches and leaders, people that think they may want to get trained in the methodology, certified in the methodology, people that might want to learn how to deliver the Integrity Game keynote or deliver training programs or coaching programs through Integrity Game branding or with Integrity Game methodology. So the Arena, there's something for everybody in the Arena, but that's what Confident Candidate is specifically is, hey, when you are job seeking, don't just go in there and answer their questions. Like, know who you are, know what you want. There's a thing in there that I call the headband of confidence. 8 things that every candidate wants to keep on their mind while heading into, because remember we talked about ego defense before. So a lot of times people go into an interview and they're like, I'm being evaluated, I'm being judged, am I good enough, will I get the job? I want people to go in saying, hey, company, I'm evaluating you. Hey, hiring manager, I'm evaluating you. Yes, by the way, as a matter of fact, I do have some questions. Why is this position open? How long has it been open? Is it a newly created position? What happened to the incumbent? Were they promoted internally or did they leave the company? To the degree that you can tell me, what does success look like in this position? Is this position tapped for raises, promotions? Who's competing for this position? Yeah, I've got some questions. You understand? And I'm giving an extreme version. You don't want to ask so many questions that you're off-putting, right? But the idea is it's your interview too, candidate. Let's be a confident candidate. You should know, we want you to know who you are, what kind of a life you want, where you're taking your career, and you go into this interview to make sure this job is going to help you get where you want. You follow? Rather than just going in there to be evaluated and judged and hope and pray. That's no way to enter into an interview. So that's what the Confident Candidate's all about. People can learn about the 8 things that I think we need to keep on our mind when we're interviewing for anything, whether it's a job or anything else, right? And so, yeah, that's the answer to that. It's one of several soft skill courses that we're building and making available in the Arena, which is where the Integrity Game gets played online.
You do like your coaching, especially like executive coaching. What do you find to be like some of the biggest like misperceptions that people have and the executives have
Of coaching?
Yeah, or that and like what obstacles do you usually find that these people have?
I mean, it's not rocket science. Ego is one, right? And not just sense of self, but like Marshall Goldsmith is somebody that I look up to a lot. He's done a lot of work in this area. He wrote, "What got you here won't get you there." And it's like the paradox between like somebody that's a C level Guess what? They're C-level because they kicked a bunch of ass in their lives, right? But that can fool somebody into thinking that they don't need to learn anything else, right? So now sense of self is you're right. But it's also not just I know it all, but I'm responsible. Everything's depending on me, right? So ego, right? Either from know-it-all to control freak to not able to delegate, right? And then I'll tell you, the executives don't have some of these critical answers answered for themselves. They're chasing, they're just doing what the Joneses are doing and trying to keep up with the competition, but they haven't really said, wait, is this what I really want? They've just found themselves there. And now the weight of the world is on their shoulders, and they haven't stopped and taken a deep breath and asked themselves about the life they really want. Success has trapped them into, right? In politics, sometimes it's not the leader themselves, the executive. Maybe they're perfectly fine, but it's the underlings that are trying to get them, right? Or the board's trying to get it, right? So there's a lot of pressures that come from boards or come from other execs or other C-levels. So there's jockeying, positioning, right? So sometimes politics are swirling around. That can get in executives' ways. Sometimes their own fears, like they're afraid of installing a culture of accountability. So instead they're embracing dysfunction, which is what they should really be afraid of. Executives, as executive as executives can be, they're executively human at all times too. They're human beings just like anybody else. I don't care if you're a C this or a VP that or a founder or a trustee or a emeritus or a whatever. We all have emotions, we all have fears, we all have patterns, habits. We all, and some of us can't get real about that because we have to face save. And there's a lot of lives that are, some executives have a lot of mouths to feed and a lot of lives depending on them. Like, oh my God, if my company goes under, this 37 employees and their families that have to figure out what's going on now, right? So sometimes it's like, yeah, that's true. And you also have to secure your mask first. And you also have to do what's right for the business. And at the end of the day, right, how responsible are you for all these families, right? And then if you're really responsible, then how do we get them ready for this event that's coming? And make sure that, the outplacement, the outsourcing, the research, on and on and on. So executives are human beings just like anybody else, right? And I don't know if that's a good enough answer to your question, but I just think the integrity game can help. It's an invitation for people to answer questions about themselves or any noun that they care about. And if we increased alignment by 2%, if we increased resilience by 6%, if we increased focus by 7.5% compounding year over year, what would that mean to our bottom lines, right? So I'm just banking on the integrity game, making that level of impact on people's sturdiness, their resilience, their focus, their ability to withstand pressure tests, their ability to be honest with themselves, their ability to get into the right environment, to avoid toxicity, to stop keeping up with the Joneses and underfulfilling and being blown around like a feather in the wind or a pawn in somebody else's game. We want people to take charge of their lives, take responsibility for their lives, and stop blaming and tripping out and being distracted by the divisive nature of the media that's surrounding us. It's just like on and on and on, right? I don't want to prove a hater wrong. I want to prove a believer right. Right? I don't want to cry or too much or celebrate too much because of the results of the election, because I still have a job to do for myself, election or no election, pandemic or no pandemic. I'm still on this planet for a reason, and is how much of my behavior is integrated with why I'm really here versus how much of my behavior is delaying or putting off or postponing or diluting why I'm really here.
That's a great answer. What about like time management? Do you like, is that part of your coaching, like teaching people about giving advice about time?
Really quick. I laugh when you bring up time management because we know what you're talking about when you say time management, but I only say time management once, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. And then we never say time management again. You want to know why? Because guess what? Time manages itself, right? 10 o'clock in the morning is coming up in 7 minutes, whether you have more questions for me or not, right? So what we have to manage is ourselves. People say time management, and I do a joke. Like I love doing this in public speaking, Daniel. Time management. I say, okay, everybody play a game. It's like Simon Says a little bit. I get the whole audience to play this game with me. It's one of my favorite things to do. Are you ready? I'll say, here's how the game goes. And you can even play it with me live right now if you wanted to, Daniel. Here's how the game goes. If you have ever said out loud what you're about to hear me say out loud, say it out loud after you hear me say it out loud. Let's try this. Let's test it. Are you ready? Podcast.
Podcast.
Okay, you get it. Table.
Table.
Okay, you get how the game works. Are you ready? Let's go. I don't have time.
I don't have time.
I ran out of time.
I ran out of time.
If there was only more time in the day.
If there's only more time in the day.
Stop wasting my time.
Stop wasting my time.
That's a waste of my time.
That's a waste of my time.
If only there was more time left in the day.
If there's only so much more time in the day.
Yeah. I ran out of self.
I ran out of self.
You've never said that, Daniel. You've never said I ran out of self.
Right.
If only there was more self in the day. I don't have priority for that. I don't have discipline for that. You understand what I'm getting at? If there was only more discipline in the day, if there's only more self in the day, if there was only more priority in the day, the whole point is, right, when most people say time management, they are setting themselves up to be a victim. Like people say this all the time. Oh, so-and-so was sucking all my time away. Oh, really? It was sucking your time. Like the time boogeyman came and sucked your time away from you. Hey, take accountability for the decisions that you're making and find the communication structures to politely say, hey, you want to know what? I really like the invitation to work on this with you right now. And you respect me enough to know that I'm working on something right now. And when I wrap this up, I'll see if you're still available to work on your thing. But please understand that I can't deviate from what my focus is right now, even though I care about you. And I appreciate that you've come to me and you respect me enough to ask me for help. You'll also in turn respect that I'm focused on my goals right now. So can we make an appointment rather than just dropping everything to help somebody put out a fire because I'm not aligned with my own game? So what we need to manage is what we're 100% in control of, and time is not it. Time manages itself. Clock's ticking regardless of whether I give you a good answer or whether you have any more questions. What I have to manage is making sure we only have 4 minutes left in this interview and giving you the space that you need to button it up. That's what I need to manage, not, time manages itself.
Great. So, do you have any so when you say manage yourself better, so you say it's really about more paying attention to like the time you do have, right?
Yeah. My number one strategy for time management, just to give a nugget to your audience, right? Yeah. My number one strategy for time management is goal setting. And goal setting is like the fourth point on my integrity game model. And goal setting is a function of the third point on the model, which is potential. But potential breaks down to vision, mission, and objectives. So the integrity game wants everybody to understand what's their vision. When you look out as far into the future as you could possibly see, what do you see? That's a description. So the integrity game is going to invite everybody to describe their vision. Then mission is, all right, not farthest out as you could possibly see, but still quite a ways away. But now what's the mission? What's the major destination, arrival, accomplishment, accolade? What's the thing that proves you're on your way to that vision? Still quite a ways away, but it's nearer than farthest out. So you understand we have a chronological frame that we're developing here. And then objectives, that's annual. All right, so what do you need to achieve this year to feel like you're on your way to the mission, which is on your way to the vision? So that's those three pieces right there make up potential. That's how we at the Integrity Game help people access what their potential is or declare or describe what their potential is, okay? But then a fourth piece, less than objectives or less than a year, now it's goal setting. But goal setting is so important, Daniel. It gets its own point on our model, but it's still a function of this chronological frame. Vision, mission, objectives, and then quarterly goals, right? So the number one strategy for time management is, and I don't have time to explain the whole methodology right now, but by the time somebody gets through setting goals, drafting goals, having them calibrated by an Integrity Game certified coach, you know exactly what you're saying yes to and exactly what you're saying no to because you are so connected with this goal that you need to achieve by April 1st, July 1st, October 1st, or January 1st, that now anything that comes along that doesn't help you achieve this goal is a polite no. And the things that come along that help you achieve this goal is an empowered yes. So that's the best way to manage time is so you stop saying yes to everything and overcommitting and over-pleasing and people-pleasing and being blown around like a feather in the wind in somebody else's game. It's like, let it go to voicemail. If you know that person is not calling to help you achieve your goal, let it go to voicemail and keep focused on your goal. That's time management.
Do you want to give to the world all your like gifts and teachings?
Yeah. I want kids that outproduce my wife and I, outperform my wife and I, and it's hard to measure that because happiness is the true scale. So, but I want kids to create, to accelerate our progress towards generational wealth, generational health, right? So it starts with the kids being better than either of my wife or I alone, right? That's why we got married. Opposites attract. They pull a little from me, pull a little from her, and are better than either of us. So it starts there. Setting them up to create great families, setting them up to be good citizens, good people. That's number one. Then this other mission that I'm on is to popularize the integrity game. I think that's professional legacy for me. I think I have an opportunity to popularize the integrity game, and I'll leave it there.
Great. So, if was there anything else you would like to say in the last few minutes left of the podcast?
No, I will. I guess, yeah. If you want to have me back, I'm happy to come back. I do feel that you might have more questions for me, but I'm trying to stay punctual and manage myself within time. I'm easy to get a hold of, so any of your listeners or followers out there can find me on LinkedIn and reach out and connect. Everybody's eligible for 2 complimentary coaching sessions with an Integrity Game certified coach, whether you join the arena or not. But go to the Integrity Game, check out the arena. We're still developing stuff because I give interns opportunities to develop their digital marketing skills, to play around with Integrity Game assets and build their stuff. So, but I'm available. Happy to meet. Grateful to have been on the show and cheering for you, Daniel.
Oh, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the podcast again and sharing all your experience and wisdom. I'm personally I'm very curious about this, the integrity game myself. I'm going to go buy out the book. I'm not just saying that because, with my own experience with Landmark Forum, and it was a positive experience. You said I definitely give credit to where credit is due. It was really awesome.
Have to.
So I'm definitely curious to see what you bring to the table in integrity, because I personally think that's a very important subject that not enough people talk to. And that's probably one of the pitfalls of our own society, if the shortcomings of why things, could be potentially even better.
Yeah, I really do think the integrity game becomes like a Trojan horse to get people into a conversation that they're otherwise avoiding. If I just make it a little bit easier to get people into this important conversation, I think I'm doing something special. So I'm happy to talk with you about it offline and let you look beneath the, behind the curtain and everything that's going on behind the, you know what I'm saying? I'm happy to show you everything and see if it can help you in any way. Absolutely.
Well, Jeff, it was definitely a pleasure speaking with you. And thank you for also bringing your entertainment style into these, conversation. It definitely makes things a lot more interesting to me and the audience. It's definitely
good.
So,
yeah, I said, it's my pleasure. And I'm happy to come back anytime for a repeat appearance. There's always more for us to talk about. And if you want to reach out to me one-on-one offline, I'll be more than happy to facilitate a deeper dive for you into the integrity game. I'm happy to do that.
Definitely, Jeff. Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate it.